What's up, guys? It's been a minute. Um, wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I'm not gonna lie. Star Wars news has been pretty quiet. I did a lot of speculation about The Last Jedi, none of which I think came true. I don't think I got any of that stuff right. But then again, like a lot of the shit I was talking about in my other videos is like what Snoke's connection could have been to Luke, Leia, everybody. In my theory, I theorized that he knows who the hell everybody is. He was in like that circle almost. Maybe not in the circle, but he was connected mentally or something to someone nearby and knew everybody a lot more than they lead on in these movies. Because if you think about it, being able to corrupt Ben Solo as a child, you'd have to be like a friend of a friend or like a ally, or like, or maybe he could just reach out that much mentally and put those images of Vader in his head, etc. Whatever. So I talk about a lot of that stuff. I also have a whole video where I talk about the Knights of Ren and who I think they could be. They kind of proved who they are, Luke Skywalker's students. And that's kind of how I want to segue into this theory, because all we're going to talk about is the Knights of Ren. I really, truly believe that they're going to be a big part of this upcoming movie. Don't mind this. This is not my shoddy attempt at some Star Wars like decorations. You're going to thank me for this picture frame and this glare right here from the light that I have on. You'll thank me. Um, anyway, so yeah, Knights of Ren I think are going to be a huge part of this movie, because if you think about it, it's JJ's thing. That is what he brought to us with The Force Awakens. They mention the name and that's it. We get a little image. There's been concept art, which was crazy. I was super pumped about that. And then Last Jedi, nothing. JJ's back. They're coming back. I think they're coming back in a big way. The one thing that Rian Johnson did right that I liked was he did mention that when Kylo fled the temple, a handful of Luke's students came with him. So that can only lead me to believe that those students are the Knights of Ren. I think there's a big consensus out there that that is what happened. I mean, it only makes sense to me because they don't bring up any other Force users. I'm just trying to figure out like what the hell is the overall story of this. It just led me to the balance of the Force. They're gonna wrap up all 9 movies, they say, into a nice little bow, etc. Whatever. What better way to do that than explain how this entire thing works? Try to, as many or as much detail as you can. The most prominent line in The Last Jedi that sticks out to me is "Darkness rises and light to meet it." Luke figured this out. Snoke figured this out. Despite what you think about who is stronger than who, in my mind, in my headcanon, Luke and Snoke mentally, right here. They got the exact same amount of knowledge within the Force. So Luke figured out that the stronger he would get, the stronger Kylo gets. That's why he disconnects from the Force, because darkness rises, light to meet it. There's always a balance. What Luke didn't know is that that balance isn't controlled by him, and it's controlled by the Force, and that it would awaken within somebody like Rey, balancing itself back out. There's a Vader comic, and I don't remember the issue numbers. I'm gonna edit this and bring up, hopefully find the pictures and bring those up for you guys, because I know a lot of you aren't reading these, and you should be. If you're a Star Wars fan, you can find these out there. You should just read through them all. So Jocasta Nu, who is the main Jedi in charge of cataloging and I think basically keeping track of all the Jedi archives on Coruscant, is being confronted by Vader in the archives. He's looking for something. Can't remember exactly what it is, but what stood out to me is that Jocasta Nu tells Vader, even if you kill all of the Jedi, the Force will find its vessels. Again, emphasizing that you don't control squat. Like, the Force is out there. It's in everything. I thought that was a really cool scene in The Last Jedi where Luke is teaching Rey, and he gets into the soil and it shows all the roots growing and then bones, and like it just kind of gives you a broader spectrum of like this just isn't force like within you and me and like your ancestors and how strong they were. It's in everything. Um, so Jocasta Nu tells this to Vader, and I remember what Vader was after too. He there was a list on a data card or something of other Jedi that were still alive after Order 66, and they were out there hiding, and he wanted that list because he wanted to go track them down and kill all of them. So that's why she mainly told him that, to kind of take him off the scent of getting the list of names, because she's like, no matter what you do, you can't control it. But anyway, I'm tangenting off there. Basically, the point of what sparked my theory is the whole balance in the Force, and that's probably what they're going to touch on a lot in this last movie. So the main points of my theory, I'm just going to bring it right out there. I think that the Knights of Ren are going to be heavily involved. I think that they're currently on Mustafar waiting for Kylo's return or waiting for a signal of some sort. But the key to my theory, they're disconnected from the Force, and they're just sitting there in wait. Maybe they're training in other ways, but I don't believe they're out there using the Force, because a big part of my theory is that whole balance. I'm going to get more into that. But it also, to me, is explaining, also this theory helps explain why Luke disconnected from the Force. He has his own reasons, obviously. But I think that when he learned that technique, he didn't just learn that. He practiced it, taught it, used it to his advantage on multiple occasions. Either for hiding his self and his or students in school from Snoke, and or as teaching moments and restraint and the whole hubris, because he would have taught those lessons at this new temple. So say you're training with a Luke Skywalker and you go a little bit off the handle in some of your trainings, he's gonna be like, okay, that's it, go over to the stone, etc., disconnect. You're gonna take a few days to meditate and think on your feelings while you don't have the Force kind of influencing you. You know what I'm saying? So, let's see. I'm gonna start reading a lot part of this theory because it's a lot, and really don't want to edit this video too much. I just want to talk about Star Wars with you guys. Any questions too, please bring them up in the comments. If you want me to elaborate on more things, I can touch on that, but I'm gonna just touch on the main parts of what I was trying to say in the overall theory. So another thing that I think is that Snoke and Luke, in one way or another, have been connected before. They both know of each other. They're both pretty afraid of each other. And I think that, and this is like another theory that I just came up with talking with Danielle, my girlfriend. And I love talking about people that don't talk Star Wars ever, because you get these new ideas and things like that. So even if you're not into this stuff, man, ask questions. But we're talking about the Force Skype, or where Rey and Kylo can see each other, but they can't necessarily see all their surroundings. They just see the face of each other, like if you were on Skype. And so we're talking about that whole connection, and then I was like, yeah, I wonder if they ever connected, like, mentally like that, and were able to see each other. And that's another reason why Luke was like, yo, look, I'm trying to hide from him, I don't want nothing to do with this guy, he's pure evil, etc., and was just disconnect. And then she was like, yeah, I wonder if only a light side and a dark side person could connect because of the balance. And I was like, yo, you're right. Like, Rey is obviously full into the light, Kylo is way out there in the dark side. Obviously Snoke influenced that connection. But what if like can two light side users do that to each other? Can two dark side users do that to each other? Like, who knows? So yeah, Knights of Ren disconnected on Mustafar. Luke teaching this technique in his new form of teaching the Jedi way because he's trying to improve on the hubris. He would teach limitation. I also have another huge crazy thing that I think that he would have taught. But I want to talk about real fast. I think that you can only do this connect and disconnect at a nexus or a locus, whatever. They've called it, I think, multiple things. In the movie, they called it something, and in this Vader comic, they definitely called it a locus. And Vader himself said that he thinks that it's only possible to do things in those types of locations. So you are more connected to the Force, whether it's light or dark, in that specific area. There's one on Ahch-To for the dark side. So light side planets have these areas too. So my theory also includes the fact that I think you can only connect and disconnect at these things. Vader said there's one on Mustafar. Knights of Ren are there. They could easily just meditate near that, boom, back connected, let's mess some stuff up. Last but not least, and I'm going to probably lose a lot of people here, but stay with me because if you hear how I spin this, I think it makes a lot of sense. Luke adopting the rule of two. This is that whole balance thing. All of the faults that Luke saw in the Jedi Order are the faults that Bane saw in the Sith Order. Bane was essentially the Anakin of the Sith Purge. He figured out, obviously he had his own intentions, but he figured out, that I get stronger, essentially, if I can access more of the Force. And people can correct me, because I haven't read any of that old Legends stuff, but I know people that have. I know Bane is a much more complicated character than how I'm simplifying him, but in reality, he did that. He killed all those people because he wanted there to be two. I think that Luke would have potentially discovered a holocron. I think holocrons are something that they can bring to easily close gaps and teach knowledge, and they would be chilling in temples. Other people have found them. People have found Revan's holocron that explains a lot of things that he's been through and that he's done. Luke has a red kyber crystal hanging in his hut that there's a visualization guide that says it's a Jedi Crusaders. Okay, you just said Jedi, but it's a red crystal. I mean, Revan was a Jedi who was turned to the dark side, so, I mean, I'm just saying, a lot of these things could link up. So, say Luke finds a holocron, learns the rule of two from that, and the real reasons behind why you would want to invoke or enforce that rule. And then knowing, darkness rises and light to meet it, that's why the Sith did this. They figured out years ago that you can't just do whatever you want with the Force, and everybody can't just be out there doing that. You're going to destroy yourselves, you're going to destroy everything. You have to have some kind of control. And so I'm thinking about this rule of two, right? And Luke's Jedi Temple and the Knights of Ren, and I'm like, why the hell don't these guys have lightsabers? And then I'm like, well, if I had the rule of two, we know that Snoke's had a previous apprentice. Maybe Snoke had a previous apprentice, and maybe Luke would take Ben Solo as an apprentice because of the bloodline, but have other students there as kind of a backup plan because, whatever, you want to have their strength in numbers and things like that, but knowing the rule of two and that the dark side's just going to become strengthened, I think he would teach that disconnect, and that the Knights of Ren, maybe they've never even been connected to the Force. Maybe they're just trained fighters, and they're both being trained by Jedis who are dope swordsmen. And maybe we get some flashback clips of Luke Skywalker doing some crazy shit, teaching these boys how to really fight. That would be intimidating as hell, knowing that now they're with Kylo, and they don't even need lightsabers. I don't know. So all that being said, and Kylo would be their master still, maybe he's like, no, you're still not going to connect. We can't mess with that balance. Um, I'm gonna get into a lot more of the balance. But what I started asking myself was like, Kylo Ren has nobody holding him back now. He killed his father. He killed Snoke. More than likely, he doesn't believe that Hux is his ally. There's a lot of rumors out there saying there's a mole within the First Order and that it's Hux, and that very reminiscent to the Rebels show where the Fulcrum ended up being a guy on the other side. So I think that would be a pretty cool theme to play into it. But I think that Hux is just such a Nazi with everything, and that I was so disappointed that they did that joke in the beginning with him. But don't get me wrong, I love that joke. Mama jokes in Star Wars, that just brings it right back to like, this is like my universe. People talk like this normal all the time. Like, they're not just talking Star Wars stuff. They have senses of humor. I just hate that it happened with Hux, because I think that if it was the Hux from the Force Awakens screaming in front of all of his whole army and setting that off and killing that whole Hosnian system, like, I think he would have just fired missiles at that X-Wing before the dude even said anything to him. If he didn't care that they were going to surrender, etc., why even listen to him? Just shoot him down right there, you know? So that was unfortunate for Hux, but I still don't think that could take away from him being a mole at all, because him and Kylo clearly don't get along, and he's throwing him against the wall, force choking him, like basically like rule and fear. It's never gonna work out for you. So he's, Kylo's out there, loose cannon now, supreme leader now. He wants to find the answers of his grandfather's past. So Mustafar, just all connects back to that. And I want to just say that Kylo, he killed Han in search of power. He told Snoke that he didn't hesitate. He did what he needed to. And Snoke said that it split his spirit. But in my opinion, I don't think Kylo gives a shit about what Snoke thinks about his spirit being split. I think that Kylo discovered the true power is in the balance. And I think that he is starting to truly think about what Snoke said, darkness rises and light to meet it. Like, he was plotting the whole time that they were interrogating Rey. Kylo's just sitting there with his head down, just thinking about his opening. Like, man, maybe if I just half use the dark side and half use the light side, maybe Snoke won't even see it coming. Maybe that's how Kylo did it. Maybe in that moment he was at perfect balance. Maybe when the lightsabers split, obviously they're a perfect balance, and the saber can't choose and explodes. Maybe Kylo was like super back into the dark side in that moment, and Rey was, obviously she's always been light side. I think that we have permanently lost Kylo Ren. I think that when the whole her not joining him and him just reaching for that and then her reaching for it, I think that's when it happened. I don't know. I don't want him to be redeemed. I think if he's redeemed, I don't want to talk about redemption too much either, but because I can talk about that in a whole other video if people want me to. But I think that if he's redeemed, it has to be something that is like, it's gotta be with a purpose. Like, either he's gotta die, or either he has to. And I think this would be cool if he did something so dark that it just like snapped him out of it, and that he immediate regret, like, just holy what, I need to stop. Like, I cannot live like this, anything kind of like that. But there can't be any sacrifice. There can't be like just no sacrifice for him to come back to. And I don't think killing Han Solo is redeemable. I don't think fans are gonna really appreciate that. I know all you Reylo people out there. I don't know. I'm down with Reylo, just don't want it to be a romance. Because my question I go back to all the time is like, why the hell would Rey fall in love with someone like that? Like, even if he came back to the light, like, killed his own dad within 2 days of her meeting him, like, or knowing who he even is, and like it's too much, man. I think there's some things you can't come back from, and it's like he's been rejected by this girl now, and so he's just gonna go off the deep end. He's gonna delve into sorrow, pain. It's all just gonna just lead right up to him finding the truth out about Vader and the manipulation that happened, and he's gonna figure out that he did the right thing by killing Snoke, and that he was able to do what Vader did. But now he is gonna become the Emperor. Like, he doesn't want to go to the light side. There's nothing for him there except Rey, and she's rejected him a billion times. Like, I just don't think it's gonna happen. So I want to talk about now Luke's disconnect toward the end of the movie, and why I think he was able to become a Force ghost. We've heard all about how Force Awakens, he was wearing the ceremonial white robes, and that he was attempting in that moment, or about to attempt in that moment, to become one with the Force. I think that's been confirmed. I think Rian Johnson said that Luke went up there to die, which is pretty dark if you think about it. It's like Rey is walking in on him trying to not commit suicide, because it's not that dark. Like, he's given himself to the Force, and, you know, the only way to become one with it is to fully give yourself to it. So I think, going back to the whole balance of this, that as soon as, because I went back and I watched every, like, scene for scene of The Last Jedi, and if you watch it, it's shot real well. Luke, he tells Rey in the Mosaic speech about the lie that Kylo turned on him, and that he didn't try to go there to kill him. It's that he was going through his mind, and that, you know, Kylo turned on him. So right after that scene, they do the Canto Bight escape. Then Luke reconnects the calling out to Leia moment, and Leia coming out of her coma. So what is Snoke doing this entire time? He's got his alien homies watching the fight, and he's reaching out through the Force on his little throne there. So now he's freaking out because he sensed that Luke is back. He's like, oh, that presence I haven't felt in forever, because, again, like my theory says, I think they are more connected than anybody's leading on to be. And so he bridges Rey and Kylo's mind in that moment, not knowing where Kylo's at, not caring, because all he knows is that Luke has reconnected now, freaking out. So he force bonds Rey and shirtless Kylo, and I feel like that really explains why Kylo didn't have a shirt on in that scene, is because Snoke's over there losing his mind now that he senses Luke Skywalker again. Maybe in that moment, after he sensed that, he sensed Rey had found him, or he knew, you know, what was up. And so then after that connect, Rey immediately is like, YOLO, we're going to the dark side cave. She dives down there, doesn't get the answers that she wants, comes back out of that area, and maybe Snoke couldn't sense her when she was in there because it's such a power or whatever, but as soon as she comes back up out of there, is the scene where she's in the hut, and again, Snoke connects them, because he's like, I can't give this girl a spare moment. I need to bring her to our side now. So as soon as she comes out of the cave, he force bonds them again. They do the hand touching thing. Luke sees it, freaks out, and like, I don't want to believe these rumors of like a child through that touch, and people are like, oh, they said it's the closest to sex we'll ever see in a Star Wars movie. I'm like, oh yeah, so clearly that means she's pregnant just because that's what they said. Like, no, that's just, they said that's as PG as they're gonna get with that. That's it. So I don't want to think that there is a child just out of that. But do I think it's more significant than anybody is thinking? Yeah, because Luke freaked out. He literally exploded that entire hut to pieces over that. Why? Like, I don't know. I think there's more to him freaking out. So then there's the whole Yoda advice to him, and let's see. Yoda advises him to watch her, sense everything around. This is what he says. He's like, he advises him to watch her, sense everything around her, and wait for his moment. This is what I'm thinking in my head canon. We don't see the conversation, the whole thing. Luke senses Snoke die, knows that this is his opportunity to be able to let himself go into the Force. And I harpen back to the whole balance. So in this moment, Luke's connected, Snoke's connected. I think they're a balance. I think that the two of them are just as strong as each other. You know, and I think that Rey and Kylo, again, because of the saber scene, are just as strong as each other. So you have Snoke and Luke, and you have Rey and Kylo. Perfect balance within the Force. Luke senses Snoke getting chopped in half, dying in that moment. He knows this is his opportunity. He begins to do the whole projection thing. And I don't think that that's something you can just do. He's got to send his spirit way through the galaxy to where they are on Crate. So, this is also going to lead back to me talking about him with the ceremonial robes. I think Luke has tried to, like, essentially kill himself and become one with the cosmic force multiple times. He's like, I need to get away from this. I'm done. Like, I'm checking out. And the Force was like, sorry, buddy. You have unfinished business to attend to. There's something in the Force that happened, and you're a part of kind of why it happened. So the Force, to right itself, kept Luke from completing his task because they still needed him within the physical Force. So he senses Snoke die, finally is able to let himself go into, the cosmic Force. But, also there's kind of, and I'm like not trying to debunk my own theory, but Luke is alive after the Force projection and his spirit kind of like comes back to him. But like that whole separation, maybe he's in the cosmic Force at that moment, and that takes him out of the physical Force. So Snoke's dead, he's out of the physical Force. They go for the lightsaber together, again, reiterating the balance. So then, after that, Rey's like, whatever, I'm bouncing. Luke, spirit comes back to him. Then he dies. Toward the end of the movie, you see Rey lifting every rock in the scene around that area, and everyone's like, "Oh, she's a Mary Sue. She's a Mary Sue." No, she's the only somewhat trained, or even knows how to access the Force light side user in the known that we know. Luke's gone now. She's literally the only person accessing the light. Kylo is literally the only person accessing the dark. I think there honestly could be somewhat of a cap on the whole Force as a whole. Everything's connected, everything is, the Force is within it all, but it's got to stop somewhere. There's not, there's only a limited amount of things within the galaxy that can take a physical form and hold that physical Force within them. So I really just think that Rey and Kylo are a perfect balance. Knights of Ren can come into play now because, obviously 2 or 3 dark side users are going to be able to overpower one person that is only accessing the Force, and especially one person that's learning on the go. But I'll be very curious to see if they explain more of the balance, and I hope that that kind of comes into play more. Um, I feel like you can go back to the old OG trilogy, which I would like to do still. I got to do that for the prequels as well, because I want to try to track like how many people were accessing the Force at that moment. Obviously, Clone Wars is just, I'm not even gonna try. But when you start getting down to like, okay, everybody's dead, Order 66, um, even things like Palpatine being able to hide from the Jedi throughout everything. Nobody even knew, nobody sensed him, all these things. That dude wasn't connected to the Force. He knew that ability. Why wouldn't he know that ability? So he's sitting in his office right before Mace Windu comes in, sitting there patiently, whatever. He's holding onto his chair right here. Visual dictionary from The Last Jedi. He's got these statues in there. They've got those runes from Pilio, or whatever that planet is. It's a dark side, like very dark side planet. There's runes on those statues. The ruins are on the ring that Snoke wears in the visualization guide with that massive black rock on it. Those are the same runes that are in the Palpatine's office. And so he's sitting there like this, waiting for Mace Windu and the homies to come. In that moment, he's reconnecting to the dark side. Never had to use it before, was able to hide. Now they're on to me, now I'm connected. Little lightsaber comes out, he's ready to go. I just think that that would be crazy. I don't think that they can ever explain that now because the movies are so old, but if they were somehow able to just link it back to the ring somehow, maybe the ring is a portable nexus or something, or the runes help you to access it and you're able to turn it on and turn it off. But I don't want it to be like a light switch either. That's why I think that you can only do it in these specific areas. But I think Palpatine kept those massive statues there because they were more or less a fork to kind of bring the energy into his office and focus it more. They talk about that with the castle on Mustafar, the people that designed that. They wanted it to look like a fork because it kind of drew all the dark side energy into that, and underneath the castle is the nexus or locus, whatever you want to call it, where you can do things that you can't do on other places. But yeah, man, that's the long and short of all the theories I've been thinking about leading up to the next movie. And I think that I have a lot more to talk about. If you guys have any ideas, or if this triggered anything in your head canon, or things that you want to be true, leave a comment. I'm more than glad to respond. If you think this is whack, if you think that I'm a moron like some of the people in the Kevin Smith podcast comments, love you guys. Love to hate you. Keep trolling. Like really, like talking shit about Kevin Smith's health in his own podcast comments, it's not a good look, bro. It's not. You're trash. Nobody cares about your opinions. You guys should go watch that podcast that I was in and read the comments because, man, people are just brutal. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. I know I rambled a lot. If you're still here, congratulations. You should subscribe because I'm down to make more videos. I want to do some like my top 5 do's for the last movie, my top 5 don'ts. Really would like to start talking about every single Vader issue. I think I might just do little, like, even 2-3 minute clips about each episode, but I much rather prefer this long form thing because I don't get a lot of time and I procrastinate like a son of a, and I just have a lot going on with work. I do a lot of other creative things too, so having time to talk about Star Wars, or even knowing what to talk about Star Wars, because Disney's never going to do any of this. You never know, you know, whatever. I think that a lot of the stuff I just said was pretty profound, and that perfect balance in the Force, man. That's what this is all leading up to. It's gonna tie it all in together. I'm really gonna get out of here though. I am still rambling, so peace, guys.